in Python and JavaScript. Good afternoon, everyone. I understand after post-lunch session could be a little difficult, so I'll try and make it as exciting as possible. So let's start with the presentation. How many of you use Firefox here? Great. How many of you believe that Firefox is secure?
Secure than
My belief is when I discuss with people always say using Firefox is secure. How many of you would agree to that statement?
How many of you who say that it is secure understand what is security?
Exactly, that's the point I want to get into. See, my presentation today is I'm a believer and I'm a believer that Firefox is a secure system. But what we'll be discussing today is what are the methods that you can subvert a Firefox system. Okay. A little bit about myself. I work as an independent researcher for Pixel Group. It's a security research firm with multiple people with different security domains, and we have expertise from. I work from Firefox, web applications. Some of my colleagues work for rootkits, Windows forensics, and stuff like that. As the man who introduced me told me, I do enjoy programming in Python. Python is one of my favorites. If rarely I have to program something, it would be C. I hate that language, but
you're like Cobra.
Sorry? Sorry?
Cobra, other Cobra.
Probably you could write one and then I'll use it. Probably that should be enough about myself. Let's get into the presentation. This is going to be a brief of what I'm going to be talking about. Is it audible? Basically, first, a very, very brief introduction of Firefox. As you all use Firefox, I don't think I have to do that. Then, I will be going into the Mozilla platform, briefly discussing what makes the Mozilla platform. Everyone uses Mozilla platform. Everyone knows what Windows is. We know that there is kernel, there is processors. I'm sure there was some gentleman in the morning talking about Windows processors, DLLs, files, but nobody understands what constitutes to become a Firefox. And we'll be discussing a very briefly on the Mozilla platform. The best part, all of this is online. Mozilla is one of the best documentation available for a browser environment. So you could look it up there. Then, my favorite part is attacking the Firefox. I'll be dividing this into two parts. One is showing you a couple of extensions just to show what you could do when you install an extension, what all mal effects you can get into. The next is XCS, which is cross-site context switching. That's a very interesting topic. And the last I will be ending with some of the basic points that you need to look for when you need to install an extension, when you develop an extension. I'm going to be looking at both the angles, and that should be all for it. The introduction part. As you say, it's a browser that's been used by millions. It's the second most used browser today in the world. Chrome is definitely catching up. I'm sure Kumar is talking about that. And it's multi-platform, modular and scalable. And the most important thing is it's a pluggable system. What it means is Firefox gives you a certain number of features. You want to increase it, you want to make it more, you make extensions. Preparing extensions is very simple. Probably during this session I will show you how extensions are created. I won't run you how to create it. I can show you the structure, what you need to put in there, how does an extension get created. It's very simple. Not too much of programming is needed if you need to do a hello world in an extension. And as it says, it's my browser. I don't use Chrome, I use Firefox. The Mozilla platform. Let the whole idea is I want to set it up in such a way that I'm sorry for this. Before I get into Mozilla platform, the thing that I wanted to discuss is the Chrome. Chrome is not a component inside the Mozilla Firefox. It's a context. There's a lot of components that make together become a Chrome. If you need to understand Chrome from an analogy point of view, Chrome is like a kernel in a Windows environment. Chrome basically is a place where you have multiple files. Any file or any code that executes in a Chrome environment has the highest privilege. Chrome is defined by Chrome : // So if you want to refer some component inside a Chrome, you basically use this URL format. Zool, XBL, CSS, JavaScript, PDDs, images. Some of these I'm sure you all are familiar with, some of which you are not, some of which I will discuss with, are the components that combine together to become a Chrome. When you install an extension, you are basically interacting with the Chrome zone. The first component that we'll be discussing is Zool, pronounced as Zool. What is Zool? It's just an XML user interface language. You basically have some XML code which will basically create the extension's user interface. Mind you, I would also say that the whole extension that Firefox today uses also uses Zool. So what you do is, inside Zool that I'm going to put here, there's something called an overlay. What the overlay does is, it takes whatever code you have written in the Zool interface, puts it inside the browser's Zool interface. So that's the reason why you can create your buttons inside the Firefox itself. I'm sure you would have seen some of these tools. You see a button right at there, and you know how did he bring it there? He does this by extension. You create a Zool, then you create an overlay. The overlay is mentioned in the chrome.manifest.file. Once you put the chrome.manifest, you write the overlay, the file gets integrated together. And that's how you see it inside your platform. The XPL system. XPL is to extend the capability of something that is already existing. What I mean by that is, let me give you a small example. Let's say in your extension, you use a scroll bar. Now, once you scroll to the bottom, you want to change the color to yellow. By default, that's not the behavior. Now, let's say you want to change that. You can change that easily by creating an XPL. XPL is Extensible Binding Language. What this does is, it basically binds new attributes, new characters to an existing element. It starts with a binding tag, and it is added to the existing elements using CSS. You have to use CSS tags to basically, you have to have a CSS file, and inside the file you put these, you have a separate binding tag there. Why am I getting into these? Because some of these can be used to effectively subvert the Firefox system itself. The XCS is all about this. And the -moz binding element of the CSS is used to bind to the existing elements. Anyone can stop me if you have any queries. XPCOM. This is the most important system in a Firefox system. This is the nerve center of a Firefox system. This is built in native code. XPCOM can be built in C++, you can build it in Python, but predominantly what ships with Mozilla, thousands of XPCOM components get shipped with Mozilla, all of them are built with C++. The most important thing with XPCOM is you can interact. A page, a context page, let's say an extension, can talk to XPCOM using a JavaScript language called XPConnect. It's nothing but an API. You use XPConnect in a certain way to basically talk to the different components that make up the XPCOM. XPCOM is responsible for all the activities that the Firefox does, right from file creation, memory management, even if you want to browse to something, there are multiple components. Each component gets called by each one of them. So, if you really look at it, Firefox is also doing the same thing. It has a Zool element, there's an XPL element, there's some interactivity between them, there's a JavaScript that is there, which basically will interact with the XPCOM components, and any activity that you need to do is done by the XPCOM. That brings a very important point there. Sorry, I forgot to tell that. XPCOM is like COM. It's a multi-platform COM. I'm sure most of you who have been programmers have experience with COM components, how to create COM components. There's a lot of resemblance to the COM components when you create an XPCOM. There's very little bit of differences, but I would majorly say if you're a COM component developer, you can develop XPCOM very easily. And these are the other few very important ones. Geeko is your graphical interface. Neko is a component that's basically managing all your network components. Web services, I'm sure all of you know. A browser has to support all the web services. So they have some web services components in there. You have open standards. Today, if you want to browse to some place, it basically does, if you need like in my place where I work, we have to authorize yourself with your AD. It's basically done through that. All these components together make up the Mozilla environment. That's the total components. There are all these components together that becomes the Mozilla environment. This picture is taken from the Mozilla site itself, and if you look at it, there is all these components talking to each other, and the binding language between all of this is JavaScript. Any questions? The fundamentals of what Firefox is. That brings us to a very interesting question here. How do you install Firefox? I just want to know, how do you generally install extensions to Firefox?
Tools, add-ons.
Add-ons, right? That's the number one way people go and install.
Or add-ons.mozilla.com.
Sorry?
Otherwise, add-ons.mozilla.com.
Yes, you're right. Addons.mozilla.com is the site which hosts, it's a site hosted by Mozilla, which hosts the different extensions that are there. People do have a certain amount of trust with Mozilla. I want to know, how many people of you here tamper data? How many of you use tamper data? Every one of you. Did you open up your tamper data and see what is stored inside a tamper data? Right? Nobody of you actually opened up. But the problem was, some 6 months back, there was an attack. There was an extension that was created by someone and hosted on the Mozilla site. Let me see if I can open that up for you. Lavakma, this is for you. I'm using Chrome.
Okay. See, Chrome is the most powerful mode of Firefox.
See that? This basically, I've saved it here so that I can show it to you people. Basically what he did was, there, like I said, once you are inside the Chrome environment, it's a flat system. You can do anything there. You can basically root your own systems. You can go and attack other extensions also. So what he did was, he found a way to basically, the minute you install this extension, and the fact was this was actually available on the Mozilla site. And that was the gentleman who made it, and that's how it was loaded. The unfortunate fact is, people do trust addons.mozilla.com. Today the problems is, I'll be continuing with this, is today close to 2 billion extensions are made. Today if you look at it, there are close to 2 billion extensions that are made, and there is, I'm sure most of you know that there is a code review process. The minute you give an extension to it, it does not mean it will immediately get on the Mozilla site. There is a code review process that happens. But the problems are associated in such a way that 2 billion is not a very manageable figure. The number of security experts available, so security gets compromised on that. That's the most important component. What they are really looking for is whether this will not break the Firefox system. Yes, major, you use some of the important things. Now Mozilla is getting up to the fact they have given a blacklist of functions that cannot be used in an extension. If you use them, they will automatically take it off. But other than that, there are ways that you could use a simple XML HTTP. You can create event handlers to basically steal off information that you want. A couple of demos I will be showing you is how you can basically use an event handler and XML HTTP to create a keylogger. So simple. So these are not starkly security problems. But can this be used to take away data from you? Yes, it can be taken away from you. The other way you can install an extension is, there's no stopping that you could create. I'm sure most of you know that extensions are XPI files. You can store an XPI file in a website and give it for download. But one of the most confusing things I noticed is, when you download an extension from Mozilla site, as well as if you download it from some trusted third-party site. Like, I know of a company from a DLP vendor, he sells a DLP-based Firefox extension. So basically that means he's not gone through the code review process of Mozilla. He has basically created the code the way he likes and he's put it up there. Nothing against him, I don't know, I have not done code review on it. So I don't know whether it's secure or not. But that means it's you who has to take responsibility of it. But the warning box that comes for an installation. I'm sure when you install, you get the box, right? You're going to install an extension and it takes 3